This is all mind-blowing information, but it all makes so much
Yeah.
sense. My family and I were missionaries for a time. It took me and my 3 kids, and we went down to Mexico. It was a lifelong dream, a calling of mine, and we served in a very impoverished area for about 4 months, and that definitely changed the trajectory of my life. I came back, reassessed everything, and it's part of the reason where I am what I'm doing right now, the intersection of health science meets biblical truth. One of the things I talk about all the time down there is I had 3 pairs of pants and 6 tops and 2 pairs of shoes. And I was happier than I have ever been. I was literally in a poverty-stricken area, working at a medical clinic. We were happier, we slept better, our relationships were better. Everything was simpler and easier, and our stress levels were lower. And I always go back to that time when I'm looking at my closet now and seeing this it is pretty obscene. Nobody should look at my closet. It's crazy. How much I have and how frustrated I get sometimes with it when I had 6 shirts and 3 pairs of pants and I was happier.
Yeah, you weren't focused on your stuff then, you weren't distracted by your stuff then, you were focused on things that brought you joy, serving others. And that happens when we own less stuff too. We're not focused on buying our next possession. We're not focused on maintaining things or organizing things. We're focused on things that bring us more joy because we have more space in our lives for that.
Okay, so tell me how, because I feel like I'm pretty good at throwing stuff away, kind of to a fault. Sometimes my family will be like, "Really? Are you really?" I have an easier time getting rid of things, but I know that there's a lot of emotion around that. So what are your tricks? How do we change our brain in this area?
Is if you mean like how would you get started decluttering or yeah,
Yeah.
well,
Yeah.
what I found is that the most effective way to get started decluttering is to look at the categories of your stuff and realize what is causing you the most stress. Because what I read as I started researching minimalism is that the best way to start was in a contained space, maybe a non-sentimental area like a kitchen cabinet or a bathroom drawer. But what I found when I tried that is that I would have a nice organized drawer, but then I'd turn around and I'd still have just these piles of kid stuff, kids' clothes everywhere, kids' toys. We have 4 kids. We're expecting our 5th. And so kids' clothes at the time were the bane of my existence. They were just everywhere. And so I realized that for me to be efficient in my decluttering, to make an actual dent that made a functional difference in my life, I needed to start in the area that caused me the most stress. So what I would recommend listeners do is just kind of step back, observe your home, and write out the different clutter categories that are causing you the most stress, and then actually go ahead and rate them. 1 is not much stress, 10 is a ton of stress, and then start at the top. Whatever area that is, go ahead and dive in, dive in that way. Start with your most stressful clutter category because that's going to then lead you to your next one because momentum builds upon momentum. When I started with kids' clothes, we went from having piles of clothes that I stuffed in the crib and just didn't have a system at all to having just a very, very small wardrobe for my kids and they could take care of their own clothes. And my stress levels just from that lightened a lot too.
So Julia is expecting her 5th child at any time
Mhm.
now. So we're so blessed that she's here to share this with us. With 5 kids and tackling something that is child related first, I would think that that would hold a lot of emotion. I can't imagine throwing away like my baby's onesies and things like that. How do you get over that part of it?
Yeah, that's a great question. We think about there's a lot of biases that hold us back from letting go of our stuff. There's cognitive biases, there's emotional biases. Cognitively, there's like the mere exposure effect. It means just when you see something often, you're more likely to keep it. Your brain thinks it belongs to you. So if you're exposed to it often, you're going to want to keep it. And so one thing, and then like I said, there's emotional biases too, right? Like the fear or the guilt, or you think you're going to need something just in case for the future. So, one thing I really like to do is to box up items and then get them out of my site for a while. So, maybe 3 months. Don't declutter it right away. Don't donate it right away. You can box up the kids' clothes, put them in storage for 3 months. And what happens with our brain then is when we revisit them after a period of time of not having seen them, we realize that we don't need them. There's not that emotional connection as much. There's not that exposure effect going on that we've seen these daily. We think they're part of our lives. And it's much easier to let go of them after we put them away for a while.
It's so true. I'm brought back to when my mother passed, and it's been 3 years now. I took all of her clothes out of the home as we were cleaning up, and I was going to donate them, and I remember being at the place where you donate and sitting there and being in tears and just thinking, "I can't do this. I can't donate her clothes." It was too soon for me at that time, I think. So I brought them and I hung some of them up downstairs in a closet, and I put some of them away kind of in the basement. And as I've gone to revisit them, it's definitely gotten easier. First of all, the time, but also you're right, that's not her. I have pictures, I have memories, and those clothes aren't her. So it's become easier because they're not kind of in my face all the time.
Exactly. And then, yeah, sentimental items are difficult. Like the clothing like that are sentimental because when you see them, you have that feeling, those memories of your mom, but you have those memories anyway. You don't need the clothing for those to be drawn up. And often when we do see certain pieces of clothing in our closet, they do trigger emotional responses. And so that could be sadness. You could be seeing those clothes and feeling sadness. And I bet that's not how your mom would want you to feel every day either.
Exactly.